What is up, internet friends and family? I'm Charmix, and today I'm going to be reacting to 5 biggest US government mysteries and darkest undisclosed secrets by top 5s. Now, top 5s make amazing videos, so I expect this to be fantastic. Make sure you go subscribe to top 5s, that link's in the description, as well as a link to the original video. And yeah, hopefully you guys like this video, and let's begin.
It's no surprise to any of us nowadays that the world's governments keep things from the public. And no doubt, most of these things we do not need to know about, and they would not need to share. But there are some things they would prefer to keep a secret, because they would make you doubt their morals and leadership. Now, we must not cause this to turn against our governments, because countries with no government do not operate well. However, there are things they do not let out that have surfaced or been leaked over the years that are worth talking about. Like the huge billion-dollar fund that comes from taxpayers' money and goes into undisclosed projects every year, to the theories that the government is run by a handful of upper-class people who control the entire population. Here are
theories that an upper-class people control the entire population. That is probably possible, because the US currency comes from the Federal Reserve, which is not owned by the government. It's actually owned by, like, a different organization. So the people who own the Federal Reserve, they make money and then they loan it to the government with interest so that the government has to pay the Federal Reserve. No government should operate that way. That makes no sense. Basically, the government's saying, hey, I would like some money. And the Federal Reserve is like, alright, here's some money, now you owe me interest on that money. There's something that definitely needs to be changed. I mean, I think every other country has their own currency where, you know, they make their own money, but the US has to go to an organization which, you know, isn't even a part of the government. They have to go to, like, a business to get money. That makes no sense.
5 of some of the most mysterious and interesting US government secrets. But do keep in mind that the most mysterious secrets would of course never come to light. The Black Nuclear Suitcase. For the last few decades, whenever the President of the United States was away from the White House, as well as a cavalry of security would follow a black leather suitcase with a protruding antenna that became known as the football. For a while, it was one of the many things the government kept from the public, but over time, its purpose became apparent, and it's pretty daunting.
Is it like nuclear codes or something?
Is Commander-in-Chief of the US Armed Forces, meaning he or she is solely responsible for authorizing retaliation in the event of a nuclear attack.
Oh, it is.
For this reason, when they are not near fixed command centers, everything they need to authorize such an attack is carried in the ominous black reinforced briefcase that acts as a mobile hub for the United States defense system.
So basically, it's like friggin' nuclear launch codes and shit like that. Why is it not handcuffed to the guy's arm? That's crazy. That's crazy. It's not handcuffed to his arm. If you have nuclear, you know, codes or whatever in that briefcase, and, you know, anyone can, you know, if they want, switch it out with a fake one or something like that. That's very dangerous. It should be, like, chained to someone's arm so that it can't be switched out.
As you can imagine, the exact content of the case is a secret, but it's said to contain 3 things. A small book on retaliation options, a book that provides information on sites where the president could be taken in the event of an emergency, and a folder with procedures for the emergency alert system.
Oh, okay.
In a situation that the president needs to authorize the use of nuclear weapons, the case would be opened and a command or alert signal would be issued to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The president would then review the attack options contained in the case and make a very important decision. But what if the football was hacked or stolen? Well, before an order can be made from it, the president must first identify himself. In order to do this, the president uses a special code that is printed on a credit card-sized piece of plastic that is known as the biscuit, which is usually on the president's person at all times. The use of the biscuit...
What if someone steals that as well?
...and the football is thought to date back to Eisenhower, although its use as a means of identifying the president in the event of a nuclear attack was an idea from Kennedy's era, when at the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis, he was concerned about how his identity could be confirmed if he needed to authorize the use of nuclear weapons. But something they won't tell you is that everyone makes mistakes, even the most powerful people in the world, and on numerous occasions, the biscuit and even the briefcase has actually been lost. all been in a position to have been easily accessible for anyone.
Wow.
For example, after Ronald Reagan's assassination attempt in 1991, his clothes were cut off him by medics, and the biscuit was found a few hours later in Reagan's shoe that had been put into a hospital bag. It was also allegedly lost by Jimmy Carter when he took his suit to the dry cleaners, and President Clinton, who at the height of the Monica Lewinsky scandal completely misled the code for several weeks. If someone had obtained it and somehow had access to the football, there would be very little from stopping them launching the US's nuclear warheads.
What they should make them do is memorize it. I think there was like 10 codes there or something like that. Maybe cut it down to 5 or something like that, and just make the president memorize it. You know, maybe every week or so they have to recite it to someone who knows it, just to confirm that they know it, something like that, because they carry it in a little like card thing, and they've lost it before. You can't have the president doing that, especially when it comes to like nuclear launch codes and shit like that. That's so bad. They should be memorizing it so that way you can't really lose it.
But it's not just the US who has a nuclear briefcase. The UK and other countries also have similar devices, including Russia, who are in fact the only country to have activated it in response to the 1995 misidentified rocket that was fired by Norwegian and US scientists. So next time you see the president on TV away from the White House, just know that not far behind is the football and the biscuit, which is no doubt in his suit pocket. Military drones are not as effective as the government claims. The use of military drones has increased dramatically over the years, as their ability to operate remotely and carry out missions too monotonous or dangerous for humans is a game changer. But you may be surprised by the lack of accuracy they have, and if you've seen the drone protests, you know these drones have not been as effective as you would like to think. According to leaked Pentagon papers, death caused by drone strikes aimed at terrorists have caused an undetermined amount of civilian casualties. It's claimed the US drone system favoured by Barack Obama is unreliable, and although they are accurate in hitting their intended target, they are secretly killing many more people than intended. One example of this is it's alleged that one of the drone strikes on northeastern Afghanistan in January 2012 and February 2013 resulted in the deaths of 155 people, 136 more than the 19 that were the intended target. That is an unacceptable loss of innocent lives.
How did you kill
However,
that many
these
people?
casualties are still classified as militants killed in action, despite there being no evidence of them being involved. The problem is, most of the drone attacks are conducted off signature strikes, meaning they will kill someone who looks like a terrorist without any hard intel or identification that they definitely are. This is one of the reasons that it said 98% of all people killed by US drone strikes have not been high profile or any real threat.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy that they would, freaking kill people without them being, confirmed as terrorists or threats. They're just randomly thinking, hey, he looks evil. Let's freaking bomb him.
But most interestingly, these drone strikes were not only killing innocent Afghan civilians, but causing the civilians to resent the United States for killing their friends and family. In fact, the 2010 Times Square bomber, Faisal Shahzad, said his main motive for the failed attack was a retaliation for the US drone strikes on innocent people in Pakistan. Like an anti-drone protester said, for every bad guy, and in turn usually civilian killed in the Middle East, 10 more bad guys are created as a result of resentment. At the end of December 2011, Pakistan's army chief stated they would shoot down any US drones that entered the Pakistan airspace. Although as of 2016, there are still many drones over there scanning the ground for suspected terrorists.
Okay, that's pretty freaking crazy. I think a much better alternative would be to have people on the ground identifying people as, targets that are actually bad guys, not just random civilians.
The invisible government. It's long been thought that the government is controlled by an unseen, invisible group of people who run the countries, mainly the United States, for their own selfish purposes and not for the good of its citizens. I'm sure you have thought about this before, but apart from theories, is there any evidence to suggest this is actually what happens? Well, it's alleged that high-profile political leaders and even former presidents have acknowledged this is the case, and this goes back to Andrew Jackson in 1829. Since then, at least 10 former US presidents have spoken out about an invisible behind-the-scenes government who secretly run the United States. In a quote from 1913, President Woodrow Wilson said, Some of the biggest men in the United States in the field of commerce and manufacture are afraid of something. They know that there is a power somewhere so organized, so subtle, so watchful, so interlocked, so complete, so pervasive, that they better not speak above their breath when they speak in condemnation of it. George Washington also famously indicated in one of his speeches that the Illuminati wanted to separate the people from their government. The last president to speak out about this so-called invisible power was John F. Kennedy in his infamous Secret Society speech, where he told of a highly efficient machine combining military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations, whose preparations were concealed and mistakes buried. Today, it's thought the invisible government is made up of several agencies known as the intelligence community, and they conduct espionage, plan and execute secret operations, and ultimately make all the decisions and shape the lives of the American and world citizens, operating behind the scenes of the elected president. It's also believed by some that the presidents are just the face of it all, and simply something for the public to look up to, when in reality it doesn't matter who is elected because they are not actually in charge. This was pointed out in Donald Trump's presidential victory speech, which some say seems much different from his usual speeches and sounded somewhat scripted and lacking in Donald's personality. So is the government, mainly the United States, controlled by an Illuminati-type group of people who oversee and control everything? It needs a documentary, but until then, what do you think?
I think it's very possible that some secret group are controlling, politics and shit like that in the US. There is a group called the Bilderbergs, which are a group of around, I think it's 150 or 200 people that are the most powerful people in the world, and they get together every year. I mean, these are like very, very rich and influential people, and they get together every year to discuss who knows what, because they won't let anyone in there. They won't let press, they won't let anything like that in there. So it is speculative that the Bilderbergs are behind a large portion of what goes on in the world, because most of the people in there are multi-millionaires to billionaires, as well as I think the presidents go in there, the politicians like that go in there. It's quite likely that shit like that is happening, and the Bilderbergs are behind a large portion of it. I definitely recommend you go watch some documentaries on the Bilderbergs, and it's not like it's made up. They freaking announced this stuff in the news. Like, the Bilderbergs meet every year. I think they just had a meeting recently, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're behind this or maybe some other organization.
The government is watching you. In 2013, former CIA worker Edward Snowden revealed something that has been the talk for many years. He leaked classified information from the National Security Agency that there are many global surveillance programs that track and monitor every citizen in the US and also the world. He said that there are a handful of individual agencies, one of which is called PRISM, that had gained access to all of our internet communications from the largest web companies on the planet. And certain keywords such as kill or terrorism will flag up on their systems, and they can then go from there on how much information they want to find out about you. Now, the problem...
Did he say kill or kale? Because it sounded like he said kale.
With this is that it's actually illegal for them to do this, as a violation of the Fourth Amendment, which grants people their own security. But in reality, we already know this, and have all questioned whether everything online is tracked. But there are some things you may not have thought about that could be getting used to track you. Take smart TVs for example, which can apparently listen to everything that is said in the room they are in. And some even have warnings in the small print of the instructions not to talk about anything sensitive in front of the TV. Seriously.
Yeah, I actually heard of that. I believe Samsung had that warning there, saying that be careful what you say in front of the TV. That's very, crazy. I don't have any of that kind of technology, so I don't have to worry. Of course they spy on you. Of freaking course they do. These big companies get paid to spy on you. I mean, they sell your information to other third parties and to the government and stuff like that. So you really shouldn't be surprised that they're spying on you. And a good example of them spying on you is that, every week or so, you hear about a terror attack being, avoided or something like that. I mean, how else do you think they found about the planned terror attacks? They're obviously getting information from someone. So, I mean, it's no big surprise.
In fact, I bet you're surrounded by tons of items that the government could use to track you if they wished. Like the Xbox Kinect, the tracking devices fitted to cars to reduce insurance premiums, and even some toys.
Xbox
Just a few years
Kinect
ago, the then CIA director, David Petraeus, said this. Items of interest will be located, identified, monitored, and remotely controlled through technologies such as radio frequency identification, sensor networks, tiny embedded servers, and energy harvesters, all connected to the next generation internet using abundant, low-cost, and high-power computing. That pretty much sums it up. But how about this? The FBI director, James Comey, covers his webcam with a piece of tape just in case people are spying on him.
I actually do that with my laptop. It's a freaking, like, shit MacBook from, like, 5 years ago, and I've had it covered up since I got it, because I don't trust people. I've also heard stories of people, like, hacking into webcams, and then them, like, spying on you while you change and stuff like that, which is terrifying. I mean, I'm a little bit paranoid thanks to the media.
This kind of goes back to the higher power above the government theory. Because if the FBI director has to do that, then he must be conscious of someone higher breaching his personal privacy. However, probably the biggest invasion of privacy on unsuspecting users is through their mobile phones. Government officials have the power to seek all previous call records, even if the user is not suspected of any unlawful activity. And with the Apple Touch ID, they also have access to your fingerprint. This type of surveillance was made illegal in 2015, but don't think for 1 minute that it's individual to the US. All the countries are taking part in some type of data tracking and civilian surveillance. In fact, the German government got into some trouble in 2002 when a system error caused a phone number allocated to the Secret Service to come up on many people's phone bill. Now, all of this isn't necessarily a bad thing and may not be as sinister as it sounds, since its main purpose is to catch and prevent criminals. But just don't think that if you use a computer, a phone, or anything that can be connected to the internet, that you have any kind of privacy.
Yeah, as I stated, I mean, you shouldn't expect to have privacy nowadays with the technology we have.
The black budget. I've mentioned the US black budget in a previous video, but I wanted to explore it a bit more to find out exactly what it's used for, and why the government is so secretive about how much money is set aside for this mysterious budget for classified operations. I just mentioned that whistleblower Edward Snowden disclosed the mass surveillance project, while this in turn led to details of the black budget being released, with some $50 billion is used to fund what's called black projects.
50
and this was
billion?
money that until the Snowden came...
50 billion? You could use some of that. I mean, they should freaking, take off some of that and put some of that to paying off the debt.
...had rarely been mentioned to the public and hasn't been discussed since. So what is it? Well, it's a highly classified military defense project not publicly acknowledged by the government, the military, or the personnel working on the projects. The fund is apparently split between 5 agencies: the CIA, the NSA, the National Reconnaissance Office, the National Geospatial Intelligence Program, and the General Defense Intelligence Program.
Wow.
The bulk of the money apparently goes to the CIA and NSA, both of which are in place to warn about critical events and monitor people in an attempt to combat terrorism. The other 3 agencies have a smaller budget and are said to be responsible for stopping other countries from producing weapons of mass destruction, preventing cyber attacks, and defending against foreign espionage. Examples of black projects that have been unintentionally declassified are the Manhattan Project, the B-2 stealth bomber, the F-117 Nighthawk, Area 51 and other similar operations, and more recently the long-range strike bomber. A little bit of information was published in 2013 about the black budget, but despite requests, the Obama administration has not released any updated details since then. So it's only insiders who know exactly how much has been used in the past and what exactly it's been used for. The administration did release its aggregate request for non-military intelligence agencies of $53.5 billion for the year 2017, but no other details were given, so we do not know what they could be using this ridiculously large amount of money for. Many believe that Donald Trump will be more forthcoming with how much money is being pumped into this mysterious black budget.
Although I think, if anyone was going to talk about it, Trump would. I don't think he will, just because of the people who actually are in control of the government, like the, I don't know, whatever the frick they were calling them, but like the Bilderbergs or the Illuminati or whatever group is more in control. I think they would stop anyone from talking about it. I mean, yeah, I don't think, as soon as Trump's in power, I don't think anything is going to change for the most part, just because they're not going to let him do what he wants.
And what exactly is going on. But for now, it remains a secret.
Okay, so this is a very good video and very interesting. I mean, as for the part where he's talking about the government spying on you, no one should really be surprised, definitely since Snowden came out with that information in 2013. So it's not really a surprise that they're spying on you, but the black budget, I think that's what they called it? That's very interesting. I had no idea that was a thing. Anyway, guys, I hope you liked this video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, possibly share it with a friend. If you're new, subscribe and join the family today. Also, make sure you leave a comment in the comments, and let me know what you think regarding the topics which I talked about here. Definitely about the CIA spying on you, as well as the secret government. But yeah, with that being said, if you're new, subscribe and join the family today, and I'll see you guys next time.
No. 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 No.